Thank you everyone for joining us and welcome. My name is Nazra. I'm with Perkins Eastman, and we're working with MPS on the Long Range Facilities Master Plan. If you could go ahead and pull out your phone or in the browser, just put in polyev.com, but it's easier to scan it. Scan the QR code on your phone. We'll be using this throughout the session, so keep it handy. The link will remain the same, but we just kind of want to know where you're from, and if you're a teacher or administrator, just what I guess region you're representing. Doesn't have to be super accurate. Just ballpark is good. If you click on the map, a few housekeeping rules just before I hand over to Nate. We very much like your feedback. We'll want your comments, your questions, so feel free to drop them in the chat throughout the presentation. We will be running through a presentation, or Nate will be running through a presentation, and then we will field the questions afterwards. And please keep in mind that the questions submitted and the comments will be used to put together an FAQ that will be made available. And with that, Nate, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Nazra. Just to echo the point, welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your evening to be here with us. We're excited to present for you all and connect with you about the Long Range Facilities Master Plan. So yeah, hoping to start to see some results on the map. Nazar, if you're able to share that, yeah, that's great. And just start to see, this is a good introduction to the tool that we'll be using throughout the presentation, but also knowing that this plan is going to be touching the entire district, and want to know where folks are coming from. And just in case a question that came up in the earlier presentation, if there's a prompt to download the app, you do not have to do that. You should be able to clear that and proceed just as a web-based tool. We'll give people maybe just another quick minute to drop in answers. Pretty accurate so far. Nobody ended up in the lake, which is terrific. But yeah. All right. So as Nazar mentioned, just to reiterate, that link will stay the same. You shouldn't have to refresh your page or anything. We'll sort of toggle on and off different engagement questions throughout the presentation. But for now, we can go ahead and get started. So Nazar, please, next slide. As Nazar mentioned, we are with Perkins Eastman. We're the organization that is working with MPS to support the district in the development of the Long Range Facilities Master Plan. And this today are the first sort of a handful of town hall meetings where we'll be engaging with you and other community stakeholders. So really happy to be here with you all tonight. Next slide. So it is not just us who is working with the district. We want to make sure we touch on the rest of the project team. We're excited to be able to work with some great local organizations as well. So again, we're Perkins Eastman. We're a planning and design firm. We have 24 offices around the globe. And have been working a lot with other urban school systems, K-12 systems, and are excited to bring that experience. We're also working with American Design Inc., a local architect in Milwaukee who has worked with the district before. And then on more of the engagement front, working with Rivera and Associates. So I'll invite Michael to come off mute if he wants to introduce himself.
Yes, hi. This is Michael Rivera with Rivera and Associates. Glad to be on board. We are a local Milwaukee public relations and marketing firm. We are assisting with public information, community engagement, and stakeholder engagement. Certainly looking forward to the collaboration. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. And yeah, another group that we are working with is PRISM. So I'll invite Keisha to introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keisha Jones-Sutton with PRISM Technical. We're a local firm. We have lots of public involvement experience, so we're looking forward to continuing to get in the community and ensure that everyone has a chance to have their voice heard. Thank you.
Thanks, Keisha. Yeah, so just a little bit more on Perkins Eastman. So as I mentioned, planning and design firm. We have been doing K-12 work for over 40 years, have worked on over 600 different K-12 projects worldwide. And more importantly, for this project, we have been doing a lot of facility master plans for other urban districts, as I mentioned. And so are really excited to bring some of that experience that we've had with those other districts who may be facing similar challenges or having sort of similar conversations about their projects and really bringing that to the table. And, you know, we're going to use this process and starting tonight to really get to know Milwaukee and MPS and make sure that the plan that we come up with is really tailored and sort of designed to fit the needs of this community. Next slide. So just to start off, we wanted to, you know, break up some of these engagement questions and really start to hear from you all and make sure that we are getting your feedback. So we know there's a lot of great things happening at MPS, and you know, we want to hear from you sort of what makes it special. What are the things that that stand out most to you? And if you want to scan that, you should be able to share in the text box there. And in addition to that, if you haven't picked up on it already, there should be a thumbs up to upvote answers that you see that you agree with, and a thumbs down for those that you do not. So if you see something that is already written that you wanted to say, feel free to just give it the thumbs up. So we'll give people a couple minutes to respond there, and then we'll pull up and look at some of those responses. And I did just want to note while everybody's working on that to the person in the chat, we can see your messages coming through. So the chat is working. All right, let's see what we've got here. So I see diverse student, staff, and programming coming in. A variety of programs the district offers, and diversity again. So special education services as well. Different program options, also diversity of programming. Majority of Milwaukee families, a wide breadth of programs. So again, just that range of programs really standing out. Supportive teachers and specialty programs, and programming unique to the district, not offered at other schools. That's great. Yeah, this is really helpful. Thank you all so much for sharing. So yeah, I think these are, you know, consistent themes with what we've been hearing even just in our initial conversations and in the earlier presentation that we did today. Really hearing a lot about the, you know, the staff at MPS and that personal touch that's offered, as well as that diversity component in a variety of different sort of facets. So on the next slide, we're going to ask one more engagement question. And we'd really like to, you know, something that we've gathered with MPS and we'd really like to learn from you is what is most important when you're choosing a school? And, you know, whether that be for your family and children or whether that be for your place of work. You know, a lot of you have a choice in that, not everyone, but many of you do. And we'd love to better understand sort of what are those most important considerations that you're making? And even if you don't have school-age children or a community member, like what do you think would be most important? You know, so we really do encourage everyone to participate. We'd love to hear from all of you. So feel free to go ahead and enter those answers. And again, look at the information that other folks are putting in. All right, give people a minute or two to populate. And just before I start reading off some of these, did want to clarify. So this is the second of the same session, same presentation that we provided earlier today. So the same information that we're providing, but let's take a look and see what are some of those important considerations for choosing a school. So I'm seeing safe. Safety is top of mind for all of us. That is a big one. And cleanliness, quality teachers, staff, programs, a lot baked in there. Safety again, academic excellence, the performance of the school and just having that, positive impact and outcomes for students. Diversity in staff and families. Let's see, alternate ways to learn. So really meeting the needs of all students, opportunities for real world experiences and learning outside the classroom. Yeah, and I know that, with the large Montessori presence and connection outside, that could be part of that as well. Let's see, many great programs, technology, computers, variety of programming, all right, rigorous instruction, and a safe, welcoming environment. And just really, yeah, I think that's helpful. And, as we continue in this process, we want to make sure that, we understand in Milwaukee and for the district, like, what is that welcoming environment? What does that look like? Great program. Reputation is a big one that we hear across a lot of districts. Just, that's sort of the word of mouth and the history of a school. Let's see, variety of effective college prep, career, and arts programs. So yeah, again, noticing specialty programming is rising up and being options. So maybe we can scroll up and see what's left at the top here. All right. This is great. Thank you all so much for answering. So let's see, and we'll go ahead and continue on to the next slide. So we're going to jump into the presentation portion of this virtual meeting, and we'll likely take about 10 to 15 minutes to get through this with some breaks for some more questions and really taking time to engage with you all and get your feedback. But our goal is to give you the high level overview of what we're working on. It is early in the process, but we also want to make sure that we save time at the end to answer questions that are coming up and fill in any gaps of information that we're not covering tonight. So just to run through this, so to emphasize, our goal is, developing strategies and recommendations. So coming up with those professional recommendations for the district. And how do we help MPS align its real estate portfolio, the buildings, with the programmatic and demographic needs? So as you see on the right here, we know there's been a lot of great work in recent history about with the strategic plan and really sort of honing in on what the goals of the district are. And the goal of this plan is to support that and it is part of that larger strategic plan, not a standalone, not a siloed effort. This is helping support that. And one of those key pieces where we see alignment is the right sizing the district component. So how do we make this plan really support that to the greatest extent possible? And through that, there's a lot of different considerations, but most importantly, we want to make sure we're not duplicating any efforts, and we're again just familiarizing ourselves and making sure that we're building on some of the great work that's already been happening. Next slide. So again, we are early on in the process, just want to acknowledge that, but we're going to go over just sort of a few of the types of details and data that we're going to be digging into and looking at for the district so that we can really understand the makeup of MPS and sort of what's going on and what the district's needs are, the challenges being faced. And then toward the end, we'll talk about how we take all that information and apply it towards the development of those strategies and recommendations. So next slide. So this is a really simple breakout of, sort of a complex level of information and data. But, these are some like three of the major buckets that we're going to be digging into. So, with schools, we're going to be looking at enrollment. Where are students, where are we seeing areas of, underutilization? Where are we seeing areas of overcrowding? How is that impacting certain programs? What are those specialty programs that exist? Where are they located? space utilization. So going back to that first point of, you know, where are the students, and what, you know, what are the opportunities that exist within places that have overcrowding, places that are dealing with underutilization and opportunities for different work, and then going into the conditions. You know, are the conditions of the building meeting the needs of not just the district and not even just the region, but also that specific school, and the communities they serve, and how does all that factor in and come into play? The next bucket that we're going to be looking at is students. So really understanding the demographics. Who are the students in Milwaukee and who are the students at MPS? What are their needs, both on an individual level and at that higher level, and breaking those out into some different categories. But really looking into, you know, the specific details of needs that range from ESL to IEPs, and the needs that come along with, you know, space related needs that come along with those, and making sure that the programs are sort of equitably dispersed to support you know, the various communities in the city. We'll also be looking at housing instability and anything that has to do with mobility, transportation. You know, where are students coming from? Where you know, how is that impacting their school selection and the choices they're making, knowing that there is you know, a great deal of options within the district. And finally, just looking at those things from the district level. So understanding, you know, policies and how statutes and anything else might be impacting decisions and the choices that are being made at that district level. And again, transportation. So how is transportation supporting things as they are now, and looking forward as we come up with this long-term and farther reaching plan? What is the best way for it to continue to support? And we'll dig in a little bit in a couple slides here, but also looking at geographic analyses and again, equitable access. So making sure that programs and you know, the needs of students across the city are being met within their communities. Next slide. So this first slide really talks, you know, about, I think, going back to similar to the slide where we spoke on aligning with the strategic plan of the district. So, you know, we want to zoom out even further than that. We want to understand, you know, what are the trends and what are we seeing happening in the city of Milwaukee? Something that, you know, we noticed early on in sort of an initial analysis is something that we're seeing in a lot of urban environments across the U.S. is just a declining birth rate, which is happening for a number of reasons. But just how is that impacting, you know, the city, and how does that impact enrollment? So, you know, we want to look at both, you know, stuff that's happening within MPS, but also larger city efforts. We know that Mayor Johnson has an initiative that's related to zoning and everything else, trying to increase the population to 1 million. So, you know, again, not just supporting this plan, not just supporting the strategic plan of MPS, but also, you know, working in partnership and sort of in line with larger city efforts, and hoping to help push all that good work forward. So as part of that, you know, we'll be looking at the birth rates, housing starts, where is there development happening, where are we seeing, you know, increased access to residential properties. So making sure that our plan is not only aware of those, but is aligned with and sort of designed to support those now and going forward. Next slide. So in addition to looking at population and birth rates, we're also digging into specific information within the district. So enrollment is a big piece of it. You know, we want to understand where MPS is coming from. So reflective enrollment analysis is a big piece of it, looking at where MPS is now, where it has been in recent history, and what are those changes and where are they, you know, most pronounced. So just as at a high level view, we notice that across the district, the enrollment declines that we're seeing, which again are consistent with a lot of urban education systems across the U.S., are primarily in that younger group, so in the elementary level. And we want to make sure, you know, as we go forward and do that analysis looking ahead, that we understand the impact that that might have as those students matriculate and move to older grades, and sort of how that's going to have a longer lasting impact on the sort of projected enrollment. So that's a big piece of what we're doing too, is really looking forward and knowing that, we're coming up with a 10-year plan, and that this needs to take into consideration all those effects and what's sort of driving them. All right, next slide. So in addition to, grade type and school level, we are also digging into enrollment by race and ethnicity, and really trying to better understand, the student population within the city, and what are the changes that we're seeing in recent years. Where are those increases or decreases happening? So again, from a very high level view, with Milwaukee, we're seeing that student enrollment is declining for Black and white student populations, and that there is even some small increases in the Hispanic and Asian student populations. So we want to understand, like, how is that impacting not just at a high level, but also at a regional level and a school level, and making sure that, as we think through this, our schools' needs changing, as the racial and ethnic demographics change. How do we make sure that the plan is taking that into consideration and making sure that needs are going to continue to be met? All right, next slide. So this is an example from a previous project, and we think it just does a great job of highlighting the importance of enrollment analysis. So enrollment is a critical input to the utilization piece. So utilization really comes from, how many students are in that building compared to the capacity of that building, and that's sort of how we determine the utilization rate. And we want to understand, at a high scale and at a regional level, where are we seeing, higher levels of utilization and maybe lower levels of utilization? Are there areas where overcrowding is happening and demands might not be met for the families who are trying to who have their students there or want to have their students there? And are there other areas where there's additional space, and maybe there, it could be a good opportunity for strategic partnerships or program enhancements, or anything that might sort of be an overall wiser decision for the district as it moves forward, and again, balancing those and understanding the impact they're going to have on the entire portfolio. All right, next slide. So yeah, and this next piece is also speaking to not just, the utilization of buildings and where students are, but also where the programs are. Something we want to make sure that we're, cognizant of is that, we're not having sort of programmatic deserts, so to say, and where there is an equitable distribution based on where the demand by students and families is for these programs, and understanding where in the city they are. So again, this was also focused in Washington, D.C., another project that we've had in a city that is split up in different regions, and understanding, where those programs lie, who they're serving, and is it having any impact on overcrowding? Is it having any impact on transportation as a result, with students and families trying to reach those programs in schools? So, it's important as we consider the long-term plan that students and families should have reasonable access to those programs, regardless of where within the city they are. So how do we start to juxtapose that information to see, those current conditions? And going forward, so this is an example of just some of the interactive tools that we're putting together. You'll see on the right, we've sort of put in some of that data that we were looking at earlier with the grade level and school level, as well as the race and ethnicity information, to see, where is utilization happening, where are these different schools located. So as you move that sliding scale, it just creates a much more approachable and visual way to understand the data, and where those different pockets are. And we want to make sure that as we go through this plan, that whatever we're producing is going to be usable. Our goal is not to create a report that's going to sit on a shelf and remain untouched, but we want it to help people understand, not just where the district is trying to go, but more importantly, why, and what sort of factors went into that decision, those decisions and recommendations that are being made, and how they are going to have the impact better serve students and families throughout the district. All right. So that is a sort of high-level overview of some of the information that we're digging into early on in the project, and it's great. And it really is sort of, I would think of it as the ingredients for coming out with a sound plan going forward, and that's kind of what we're going to get into here. So on the next slide, we've sort of included an example. This is from a previous project that we've done. So this was a different school district that we had been working with, and we wanted to sort of build out a tool that would help them understand what the sort of suite or range of potential strategies that they could consider are, and sort of how that information and that data that we're talking about and those inputs are being factored and sort of translated into decisions. Our goal here, and especially with this slide, I think what I just want to emphasize is transparency. You know, we want people to understand what are the steps along the way, what are the considerations, and why do they tie together, and how do those pieces all fit. So we want to consider, you know, where does that enrollment and utilization fit in? Where does programmatic access fit in? How does transportation all come into play? Building conditions, et cetera. You know, there's a lot of inputs. This is a really, you know, complex sort of approach and decision to make. And we want to make sure that we're taking all those pieces into consideration so that we know that the plan going forward is going to be sustainable for the district. So, you know, we also understand that, you know, there's not a single solution that's going to come out here, and that it is really about creating that range. There's not a one size fits all. There's not a magic answer as to do this and the district is going to be fine and its problems will be resolved. So, you know, we want to figure out how can we sort of enter our options into this flow chart and see what comes out. So this is something that we'll be building as well for MPS and starting to develop, you know, what are the real needs of this. You'll see on here too, just to speak to it, there's some language that is very specific to that other district. So like building model or building experience score, you know, those were data points that were developed in collaboration with their district to help make those decisions. So certainly there are probably similar data points at MPS, and we would make sure that obviously the plan and the tool sort of fits the district and that information is explained. But this should give you really that high level view. All right, and I promise we are coming up to the end, so I appreciate everybody's patience as we get through this. But yeah, another piece that, you know, we want to speak on as we start to develop that framework and bring in all that data is, again, emphasizing what is already being done, what are those existing efforts and plans and strategies that are in place and in motion, and how do we make sure that our process not only considers them, but like builds off of them and doesn't duplicate efforts. We know that, you know, the strategic plan and the vision that came out of that with those sort of 5 pillars is really critical in terms of where MPS is headed. We also know that there's, you know, a lot of programs that have their own plans. We know that there's, you know, a strategic plan just for the Montessori programming and likely other, you know, this is just one example of other programs within the district that have their own plans and paths sort of mapped out. And we want to make sure that we take that into consideration and support it going forward. In addition to that, we're looking at partnerships like the work that's happening, you know, with the rec center and other, you know, city organizations that are, you know, moving forward and understanding that, you know, a school is really seen as a nucleus of a community, but it is, you know, part of that larger sort of picture and ecosystem. And how do we make sure that, you know, we're lifting up those other efforts and really doing what is going to have the greatest overall impact on the community at large. And finally, just building off of the great work that the facilities team at MPS has done in terms of all the data and information they have in their building, knowing that they've spent the last few years really compiling all that to make sure that they, you know, understand, you know, location and rooms and sort of what spaces are available and how they're situated so that you can make those really data-informed decisions going forward. So we want to, as we focus our process, try to fill in any gaps within any of these, and also just making sure it's moving forward in a cohesive way. All right, next slide. So, we don't want to build any of that in isolation. The district and the team that we've been working with has been really clear and wonderfully encouraging that, we need to engage and have sort of authentic and robust engagement with you all and all the key stakeholders in the district. So we understand the importance of doing that at a local level too, which is why we're thrilled to be working, with Rivera and Prism and folks who understand Milwaukee at that greater level, and we can sort of bring in that urban school system experience to really factor together to make, hopefully the best possible plan. But, part of this engagement process is obviously engaging with the community. So in these larger town hall meetings, but in addition to that, we're also engaging with parents and families, but and school staff, principals, the folks who are in the building and in those rooms every day, really experiencing what's going on. Students, we find that throughout this process, and generally speaking, it is hard sometimes to stop and remind yourself that the folks who are, the whole system is designed to serve, have thoughts and feelings and know this stuff better than any of us. So we want to make sure that, we're focusing on students and making time to hear their input and sort of elevate their voices and make sure that that's factored into the process. And then labor partners as well, meeting with all the different groups. Beyond that, working with the folks at the district who all have, departmental visions and departmental planning. So that is a wide range of folks, but obviously the building houses everything and touches a lot of pieces. So we want to understand, as we mentioned previously, transportation, food, IT, special education, any of those sort of programs that may need specific spaces or maybe facing really specific challenges that we're poised to help support and address as we put this plan together. So on the next slide, just diving in a little bit more to the engagement plan and how we typically will approach projects like this. So we understand, again, that it is not a one-size-fits-all. These will not be the only meetings we're having. We know that this is a great starting point, and we're looking forward to building off it. But as I mentioned on the last slide, and we'll have more details on a few slides going forward, is those town hall meetings. So really creating the space for folks to not only share their input, but really be more hands-on and engage with us and help us understand what are the most important pieces of MPS and how are we sort of defining that high quality learning experience and teaching experience for that matter. Student workshops, as I mentioned, making sure that we are elevating student voices. We have some time in the fall that we plan to work with students. We know that it is near the end of the school year now, but we know there's summer programming going on as well with students. And so we're working with the district team to try to figure out how we can, make the most of those opportunities and get that valuable input. We'll also be, again, working with departmental folks at MPS, the people who are, well ingrained in the system and understand it best. And then also piggybacking off of existing events. We know that summer is a precious time where it is families have plans and they are rightfully so taking a break from some of the school stuff. So we're doing our best to try not to create more and just add more to your calendar, but also like find out what those sort of engagement sessions are and joining into them. So we're working with Rivera and Prism to understand what are those community events and how do we make sure that we can show up and start to engage. Another key piece, so hinted at it before, but the virtual surveys, those have gone out already. So we'll have a link on the next slide for the community and family survey, but teachers should have received an email, I believe today, just with the information about that. There are also student-specific surveys that is being presented to students. So really a great way to make sure that we're we're getting feedback from everyone, even the folks who may not be able to attend some of those in-person events. And then again, going back to some of those tools, but like, how do we make sure that, you know, we're creating stuff that is more interactive, that helps people really sort of wrap their heads and get their hands on with stuff, and have those interactive feedback planning tools as well. So it is really like a toolkit, a multimodal approach. We want to try to approach it from a number of different angles to make sure that we're getting valuable feedback from all parties. And last thing I want to share on that is just really emphasizing that you all are our biggest advocates here. We very much encourage you after this presentation to share this with your networks and let folks know what's going on, and make sure that they're aware of the opportunities that exist for engagement, and really making sure that we get that diverse array of voices heard. We know that it can be challenging for certain folks to make the time and have that awareness to give their input and feedback. So really want to encourage you all to share far and wide. All right, and the last slide before we jump back to engagement. So again, just re-emphasizing, we are very early on in the process, but we want to just spell out sort of what we're doing and how this engagement is going to inform the overall process and decision making and recommendations that we're coming up with as part of this plan. So with that first box that we have, so defining and exploring, how the real estate portfolio, how MPS schools can support programmatic and academic planning and visions. So, really, we want to understand from you all, like, what are those pieces that make a school special? We started to speak to it earlier with what are the considerations you have, but, we want to know what you value, what should be in a school, what, again, defines that high quality experience. What is MPS's perspective and the stakeholders at large? When I say MPS's, I mean like the wider MPS community. How does the Milwaukee community define a high quality school and experience for students? So taking all of that input into the second one, and we want to take that information and measure it against the existing conditions. So those buildings, what space is there, what shape are they in? To be clear, we're not necessarily going in and doing it's not part of our process to do like facility condition assessments. There's a lot of great information on that already, but using that data and saying, okay, well, here's what the community and like this stakeholder group is telling us is important. How does that compare to what's there? And where are there schools that are meeting those expectations, and where are there those that are exceeding them? And then there may also be some that are falling short. And so how do we take that into consideration to address the needs of the wider community, students everywhere, and how that impacts from a larger level and down to that regional and school level as well. So really dialing in on all that information. And then the third part is just, again, at each level, at the school level, the regional level, and the district level, what is the right strategy? Where should those programs be going, and what is going to, in a sustainable way, support the district for the next 10 years and make sure that the strategic plan is successful and supports what is going on with the city and keeps wheels turning, and that students are getting that high quality experience that they deserve, and that teachers and staff members are in a comfortable and work environment that is built for them to succeed and thrive. So those are all considerations that we're making. That's kind of how your input really drives the process. So just to emphasize the importance of that, and thank you all again for being here. So with that, I'm going to stop talking so much and go into the next piece with the engagement part. So again, going back to what do you value in a school? So we'd like you to get back on your phone if you're not already, and help us understand what are those pieces in a school, whether it be staffing related, programming related. This one is not facilities specific necessarily, but it can be. We want to understand from your perspective, what are those most important considerations that go into a school. So sorry, not the same question as before, but just sort of the things you value most about a school. we'll give you a minute to respond before we pull up the answers here, and then we'll start to take a look at what folks have to say. All right, Nazir, do you want to pull up the responses? Well, so far we've got a first place. It is supportive educators, psychologists, and administrators. That culture or feeling you get when entering the space, absolutely. So really understanding staffing, the welcoming environment. I think that dials back to some of the previous points as well. And just a reminder that question's right at the top. So what do you value in a school? So kids are learning and achieving their best potential. Absolutely. So student success and supporting the students to make sure they're having their needs met. Partnering with administration, focusing on student, like what's best for students, staff reflecting the community they serve. Yeah. So really having that sort of community buy-in and intertwining with the community around them, a safe learning environment, again, safety coming up. Let's see, what else do we have? That may cover everything. So give people another 30 seconds or so to pop in. So community involvement and support. You know, again, with the integration to the community, making sure that there is that involvement, and again, going back to that sort of nucleus or sort of hub within the community. If we can scroll up, Nazir. Let's see, and then, yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much. This is really helpful to see. And then we'll go to the next one. So this one, we would like you to take more of a facilities focus. But before we open this one up, I want to clarify. So this is not an open-ended question, but this will be sort of a ranking option. So we're going to pick 3 to 5 different answers, and I'm just going to run through them quickly. Make sure that we're aligned on what we mean, but just on those top programs. So we'd like you to pick your top 3 to 5. Oh, I see we've got answers coming in. So, you know, after school programming, clubs, sports, early childhood. So helping those youngest children and having that be baked into the programming at the school. Diversity, which I know we've touched on quite a bit, having the correct student supports, family and community resources. Let's see, partnerships, and then the elective courses. So having those, you know, additional programs or maybe not programs, but classes that are, you know, meeting the needs of the students in the modern world. Specialty programs, which we know are big, and we've seen that come up a couple times tonight. Special education programming, right-sized classrooms, purpose-built, meaning just, you know, is that science space, is a science lab at a high school? Does it have the sort of equipment that it needs? Does it have the infrastructure it needs? Same thing with music. Does it have, you know, the choir, the band spaces, practice rooms, art, having, you know, those work tables and sinks and sort of other critical components, rather than just being sort of in a space that maybe wasn't designed for its use. So I'm going to give people a couple minutes to respond to this one. If you want to just pick your top 3 to 5. All right, let's take a look what's jumping out. We've got student support really being a leader here. We're seeing right-sized classroom, so not being overcrowded or underutilized being really important. Purpose-built science, so seeing science jump out as well. And then specialty programs, elective courses, yeah, community partnerships. So yeah, there's a few sort of front runners and real leaders here. And then I think, what do we have at the top? The after school programming and clubs and activities. So you know, understanding that that can be sort of before and after care as well, and making sure that, you know, there is that option and that offering for students. So Great. Well, thank you so much. We'll leave this one open for a little bit as we continue in case anybody didn't get a chance. But we appreciate the participation. So we'll carry on, and just to wrap up here before we jump into opening things up for questions, if we can go back to the presentation. So this next slide just covers those engagement opportunities that I was referencing. So we've got 4 different in-person town hall meetings that are coming up. The first one is offered this Wednesday at the James Madison Academic Campus, JMAC. So we will be there that evening. Hamilton High School next Monday in the evening there. Bayview next Tuesday, the 21st. And Rufus King High School on Wednesday, the 22nd. So again, please share this information with your network, and any stakeholders that you might know who may have thoughts and feelings to share on MPS. We want to make sure that we are really reaching as many people as possible. And in addition to that, we've got the link here for that community and family survey. So feel free to snap a photo if you want. And then you can try to sort out how to scan a QR code that you took a picture of with your phone. I know that's a challenge unto itself, but no, all joking aside, though, we'll have information being shared out with all these resources, and we hope to hear from some of you in person. We will be focusing a little bit more in those in-person meetings with, again, that sort of active engagement and having some interactive activities planned for everybody. So looking forward to hopefully seeing some of you all there. With that, we'll sort of move to questions, and we can just leave this slide up in case anybody wants to sort of jot down what's going on.
Sounds good. And please feel free to continue dropping comments and questions in the chat. We can see them. We just can't respond to you. So I'm sorry I didn't see whoever was messaging earlier. But Nate, first question for you. Will this plan recommend closing schools?
Yeah, good question. So, as I've mentioned throughout the presentation, we're really early in the process, and we have not identified the levers or strategies that we're going to use for MPS. Closing or consolidating schools are solutions and strategies that have been used in other districts, and of many, and they're not off the table if we think it might be something that helps improve the overall experience for students, but that is not something we know yet. We don't know if or where, or if that is something that should be considered. But I want to emphasize too, it's going back to the point about not having one answer. This isn't a short term, like, let's do X and everything will be great. So we want to understand what that wider suite of strategies is, even if it includes those options, which could include a variety of different paths, which it could be different investment, policy recommendations, programmatic adjustments. So there's a lot to be considered there, and we just don't have that information at this point.
Okay. Next question. When will this study be complete, and when will the district start implementing a new plan?
Yeah. So the study, contractually, we are set to finish our plan and all the recommendations and details that come along with it at the end of October. There are some sort of mid-project pieces that we're working on and deliverables that we're working with the district on, but end of October is when we are planning to wrap up. And in terms of when the district would start implementing it, our plan is to make the professional recommendations to come up with a plan, but ultimately it is up to the administration and the school board to decide where to take it from there. So I don't necessarily think this will be an overnight jolt forward, but yeah, we defer to their direction on next steps and when that stuff starts to go into motion.
Next question. Why doesn't the district simply close the buildings that are under-enrolled?
Yeah, I mean, that is a question that we've heard on a number of projects that are districts that are facing similar challenges. So, you know, I think the reason we don't want to move quickly is because we want to move quickly with short and like very blunt you know, solutions or reactions is purposely, like, specifically that we want to make sure that we are taking in all the considerations, that we're looking at not only, you know, the data and where the district is and where the city is and sort of where things are headed, but also what exactly it is that Milwaukee wants. Like, what is that? What are the goals for students, for teachers, for staff? Like, what is that? What does success look like, and how do we, you know, design a long-term sustainable plan for that? Where our plan is not meant to be for just for, you know, the next few months, but more so really like, how does this carry the district into the future in a sustainable way that sets it up for long-term sustainable growth. We also know that, you know, making decisions of this nature can have a variety of impacts. And if you don't take the time to really dig into those, you know, they can disproportionately impact certain communities. These are, you know, very complex challenges that are being faced. And we want to make sure that we're addressing not just today's needs, but also those of the future, and considering, you know, access as we go through it for students throughout. So, yeah.
Okay. Will this plan look at things like transportation?
Yes, great question. So jumping back to that slide, we know that, you know, MPS is unique with its choice structure and the transportation that's provided, and we know that's a consideration for a lot of families and parents who you know, are thinking about where they want their children and students to be. So we want to understand, you know, how that current setup and any of the sort of funding and policies come into play and have an impact on the overall, you know, again, that equitable access piece, and making sure that you know, like we think about how far students are going and how far they should have to go long term, as we consider what programs should be located, and where programs should be located.
Okay. How much of this is driven by cost savings or financial targets?
How much of this plan is driven by cost savings or financial targets? You know, obviously, you know, we want, again, I think the piece is going back to that sustainable piece, long-term strategy. You know, it's important that we take into consideration what is needed to support student experience and you know, not just maintaining the status quo, but helping things move forward in the future in a long-term and sustainable way. So I think this plan is taking into consideration a great number of facets, but ultimately, you know, we are working towards what is going to best support, you know, the student experience, the staff experience, and just how all those other components factor in. So funding is obviously one of them, making sure that the district can support the plan that we put in place, and that it is meeting those goals, and that students are getting that high quality education that they need and deserve. So, yeah.
I don't see any more questions. We might be good.
Okay. Well, if things keep rolling in, that's fine. Otherwise, just again, emphasizing, so there will be some similarities and overlap with the in-person town halls that we're hosting in the coming weeks. But we, you know, we would encourage you, we still think there's value, obviously, in attending, and would love to interact with all of you in person if you have the availability. And if not, again, please feel free to share this information with your network and communities around you, and community members around you to come and sort of let their voices be heard.
Oh, wait,
Like,
there's one more. Why was Perkins Eastman chosen for this project?
yeah, good question. So I think I would go back to sort of that bit that we touched on at the beginning of the presentation, just talking about the, you know, the experience that we've had working with K-12 schools over the last 40 years. So both from a facility design standpoint, but even more sort of importantly from that planning standpoint, and really I think having the national experience was a consideration. I can only speak for what I know. I can speak for what we bring to the table and what we do well. And we try to be, really transparent about the things, the areas that we may not have as much expertise in, which is like working with those local partners to understand how do we get the right voices to the table, and doing really authentic and wide-reaching engagement. So we know that oftentimes that can be one of the bigger challenges or hurdles is part of these projects is reaching those people, and especially reaching the underrepresented voices who may not otherwise have the chance to provide input, and maybe impacted by the outcomes of whatever plan is and recommendations are made. We're excited to work with MPS, and we want to bring that national experience to the table and bring the suite of tools and solutions and other experiences that we've had to help MPS come up with that custom plan that fits the district and really drives this work forward.
Nate, I can kind of comment on that. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sean Kane, the Senior Director for Facilities Maintenance Services. I know the question was why is Perkin Eastman chosen for the project? When we went through this process, we created an RFP from Facilities and Maintenance, and this was submitted not only nationwide, but locally as well. And a lot of the outfits that are out there are nationwide, as Nate indicated with their team, that we took a look at not only what we looked at the previous long-range facilities master plans that were done in 2011 and 2018. Along those, we also had people that are outside of Milwaukee. But the thing is that we looked at the makeup of the team to make sure that not only that they had people that were locally based, which this team does, because we think the biggest benefit is going to be having that community engagement on grassroots level. So that's what we want to be open and transparent working with this team. We did get some vendors that did submit quotes. What we did really truly like about the Perkins Eastman team is that not only looked at building conditions, they looked at deferred maintenance. They have psychologists on their team. They look at behavioral patterns. I know there were some comments made as a space welcoming, while also it's not intruding on, you want to make sure it's safe, but also make sure it's welcoming. They also have a green sustainability team that takes a look at those type of initiatives. So we felt that they're very well-rounded. So we felt comfortable recommending them to the school board for approval on their contract. And again, the experience that they've had working with like Washington, D.C., Boston, Burbank, California, and other cities, we felt it was a good fit.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
I think that's it. There was just one that was partially answered that asked what other large school districts have we worked on and what has the outcomes been? Okay.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little more. I know we're running low on time here, so maybe I'll end on that one. But as Sean mentioned, we are working with Boston Public Schools, DC Public Schools, yes, Burbank in California, a variety of other districts in California, as well as Colorado Springs. And the reality in terms of outcomes is that everybody is sort of approaching these situations differently based on the varying factors and conditions and realities within their own communities. So I think there's a lot of different approaches that are being taken, and while there are those similarities that we think provide a lot of value as we embark on the project with MPS, some of those districts are focused on investments and partnerships. Others are thinking about size and like the amount of buildings they have and how to best approach those. So it really, I don't know that there is a specific outcome that would say like, these are like the few select options of answers that exist. But we want to look for those commonalities where we can to see how can we not have to reinvent the wheel, but also making sure, more importantly, that whatever planning and project sort of steps that we're taking, especially as it relates to engagement, are specific to Milwaukee and are really designed around the needs and challenges and opportunities that exist within the district here locally. So I know I've sort of run us over the limit here, but just wanted to again express gratitude to you all for taking the time. I know it is the evening now, and we want to give people their nights to sort of wind down. So again, hopefully you've had a chance to jot down this information, and we really appreciate you all taking the time, and we're looking forward to continuing the work and hopefully seeing some, if not all of you in person in the coming weeks and months. So thanks, everybody.